Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm Jacob Dickey in the WCIA Weather Center. Wanted to jump in and talk about our incoming winter weather event. By this time Wednesday, we'll be looking at some good snow and some ice, sleet, and for some of us, even just some rain out there. So that's something that we're looking at. I have behind me for fun the bread, milk, and eggs index. Some folks say they really like it. I hope you like my little addition here. We're calling the eggs too pricey, but this is not a system where you need to go stock up on groceries. I don't think the impacts last at least the big time impacts last all that long into Thursday. It'll be a fairly quick hit. So it's not a, hey, hunker down 3-4 days, anything like that. If you don't want to go out, I think Thursday we'll be scooping things and, taking care of things. So there'll be some impact, but don't plan on spending a lot of time going out and taking care of groceries. I don't think that is necessary. While we're on here, if you can let me know in the chat where you're watching from, always love seeing where you're watching from, whether you're watching from Central Illinois, somewhere else. Always great to connect with folks on that. I want to talk first. This year might be a little confusing for some folks. Like, hey, where's our winter storm watch at? Doesn't mean we have to have a winter storm watch to deal with that here. And we may technically not be at winter storm watch criteria over parts of the area. That's issued generally 36 to 48 hours ahead of an event. And so where the greatest likelihood of seeing winter storm criteria, at least confidence-wise, is the I-55 corridor there. And that's from Livingston down to Bloomington, Lincoln, over to Jacksonville, places like that. The watch could expand, or the other thing that might happen is we'll see an upgrade just area-wide, and we'll add a winter storm warning and a winter weather advisory there. The National Weather Service, they said, well, we're pretty confident in these areas, but there is some uncertainty, at least if we're going to get big snow or if it's going to be more sleet, freezing rain mix in there. And so we'll see what they decide. I don't think that matters so much. I don't think whether we're looking at a winter weather advisory or a winter storm warning, that doesn't change the forecast for me at all. That's more of, hey, if we're following a checklist and what's what, okay, it fits this criteria, it fits this, we're kind of, putting a box around it. And then we've got these three here. We're going to talk about impacts. I think that's where you're going to have more on this here. So this will likely change. And if there is any changes here, either tonight or tomorrow, you'll get an alert on your WCIA weather app. On TV, it'll be at the top right corner of your screen every 15 minutes. And then, of course, this map will update on WCIA.com/forecast. So that just clarifies that a little bit. Just because we are in the winter storm watch here and not here doesn't mean we're not seeing impacts here. A watch is the bottom. That's a 1. This is a 2. That's a 3, right? So we can go from a watch to an advisory. We can go from a watch to a warning. We can go to advisory to a warning. We can go both ways there. Think of it this way. We've had tornado warnings when there are no tornado watches. So that's just the rationale behind that. A number of folks have been kind of confused about that. So I did want to spend time again. Just because we don't see alerts for your county doesn't mean they aren't coming. It just means we've got to get inside that time threshold. And so if not tonight, tomorrow we'll see some changes pop up on the board with that there. All right, let's jump in and talk about our system here. First off, system number 1 is actually arriving. And for many of us, it's a big old nothing burger here. We may get some flurries this evening, tonight, into tomorrow from that. That's more of a Southern Illinois incident here, Southern Illinois problem, where some snow showers from St. Louis to Mount Vernon off towards the Evansville, Indiana area, and fairly in Arizona across the Shawnee National Forest. Places like Carbondale get a little snow. Not a big problem, but a little nuisance system for them. More to the east is where there's greater impact to come tonight into tomorrow. And you can see that snow tries to lift into our area. If there's anywhere that does get a little bit of snow, it's I-70 tonight into tomorrow morning. But this first system for us in Central Illinois, really not expecting any problems from that. So that is one thing to note here. It does lay the railroad tracks, though, for what's to follow. Here comes system number 2, and that's Wednesday morning. We've got snow coming on into northwestern Illinois, and then further down the line here, some of that rain and freezing rain that's sliding on through. We're going to take a closer look at that here in a bit, but I did want to spend a moment to at least look at that here. So let's walk you through more local area. What do we expect? First off, overnight tonight, you can see a couple spots of blue here and there. No issues. Maybe a little light snow south of Effingham. You got to get down to Mason and Farina. Get down here to Newton, Oblong, places like that, Robinson, Palestine, places like that where it could see maybe a little bit of snow, but not a whole lot here. Not worried about that. A lot of it's going to be clear and cloudy, I should say, clear of the snow at least. But even in today, tomorrow, notice a little bit of snow tries to creep on up there. No big deal Tuesday. Tuesday is fine. Tuesday is okay. Wednesday, then that might be a little different story here. Now, Strong likelihood Wednesday morning, you wake up, you part the blinds or open the curtains, you look outside and you're like, huh, they were wrong again. That's a very much what we expect. I do not expect to see snow falling Wednesday morning before the morning commute and for really during the morning commute either. There could be a few flurries for some of us. This is 8 a.m. though. The light snow's still off to the north and west and sneaking on in. It'll be mid to late morning when things start to ramp up. That's 10:30 now. There's that I-55 corridor already getting some of that snow there. Pontiac, Bloomington, Lincoln, Springfield. Areas south and west are waiting a little bit, but we'll continue as we go late morning into the afternoon. That is 12 o'clock. Now look at that snow. And then we've got some mix going on in here. Some freezing rain and some sleet seems more likely. And where this exactly ends up, our weather guidance has been waffling it around a little bit, where exactly that pans. So we're looking at a single run here. It's kind of like if you got a bushel of cherries, you're going in and you're cherry picking one, and that's what we show with Future Track. So it helps us get an idea of what's going on, but we have kind of an area to watch. So right now at noon, maybe it's actually a cold rain in Effingham, and maybe that sleet and freezing rains more Mattoon, Tuscola, even up to Champaign. Maybe that heavier snow is a little bit north and west. You kind of get the idea. There will be some variability in what we see in Future Track with this moving forth. That being said, though, notice into the afternoon, there's that freezing line, and it may be a mix even still further north with that. And then as we go into the mid-late afternoon, I do expect maybe a little bit of a lull in activity. Still some snow, still some freezing rain, but we kind of have a heavier round to start. And then we see some of that scattered snow shower activity continue into the afternoon, evening. I think it's some dry and also warmer air does try and lift north into the core of the system. And that's why there's some concern for rain and freezing rain out of things here. So let's start with the snowfall forecast here. Really, I don't think a lot of us get a whole lot of snow out of this because of that mix. If we can keep the sleet and freezing rain down, then maybe there's areas that are seeing more than what we're forecasting for, particularly in these blue zones here. That's the best chance to maybe see a little bit more. We'll watch and see. Down by Effingham, I-70, you get maybe up to an inch, but there'll be some ice and some cold rain in there, and that's what we expect here. As we go north, then we see it increase 1 to 2 inches here, including places like Danville, from Champaign south towards Tuscola, Decatur south towards Shelbyville, Taterville, Litchfield, Carlinville. And the way to overperform to get more than 2 inches of snow is cut back on that sleet, cut back on that freezing rain. If that happens, maybe those numbers look more like 3s and 4s. Then we hit this blue 2 to 4, pretty quick increase here as we go north. Springfield in that 2 to 4, but the northwest part of the county there, staying in the county, is in 3 to 5. Same here. We've got Clinton between Decatur and Lincoln. We go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 plus. From Champaign up towards, let's say, even getting up to Forest and Fairbury, or up north from Champaign to Gilman or Narga. Same idea here, that 1 to 2 inch range, a narrow 2 to 4, a narrow 3 to 5. And there may be some areas in northwestern Livingston, northwestern McLean counties that can get above a 6-inch mark there. A couple of us cannot rule that out. And so that's something that we're watching for here. And again, that question mark remains: how much of that sleet and freezing rain continues to impact things in here? That is a question that we still have. And that freezing rain may have some problems here. This is our forecast for freezing rain. In this yellowish shading, you can kind of see the glaze possible. We get up to a tenth here. There'll be a stripe somewhere in here that could get a couple tenths, maybe up to a quarter of an inch of that ice and sleet combination. Does all of that stick to trees and power lines? No. That's one thing that's maybe good from this. The other thing about that is I don't think the wind is all that strong. And so power outages doesn't seem like a widespread issue to me. Yeah, you get the occasional, burst of wind, and you got a weak branch from a storm 2 summers ago, and maybe a little extra weight takes that down. That can cause some isolated to widely scattered outages. Sure, that can happen. But in this area here, that's where that best zone is for us to see maybe the greater ice accumulation. If this is lower, then this in here, this blue area, goes higher. And that's one thing I want to clarify with that here. But when we look at whether we're talking snow or freezing rain and ice, from an impact perspective, it doesn't change a whole lot for us here. It doesn't change a whole lot. We've seen time and time again where we get a little freezing rain and we stick even a couple of inches of snow at most on top of that, and those roads turn into ice rinks. And you think about the semi-truckers who are on the interstates, they don't have the local forecast like you do. They're from out west, out east, up north, down south. They're not paying attention. And by no fault of their own, are they supposed to follow that weather, find every meteorologist on their route. That's something where, you know, you just have to think about that. Interstate traffic, slick roads, there would probably be some issues on that. Us locals, we can probably handle this at times here, but if there's a time period that's looking worse, I think the greatest impacts when that sleet and freezing rain comes on in, probably afternoon, including the afternoon commute. And once we get into the evening then on Wednesday, things start to taper off a little bit. So we'll watch that. And again, that south edge is also a really sharp cutoff. Let's say Effingham's been a cold rain all day. Well, it could be 0.2 of an inch of ice and an inch or two of snow in Mattoon. Not that far to go, but suddenly you've got drastically different impacts that are there. So that is something to consider on the south side here. On the north side, if you get more snow, then we're looking 3, 4, 5, 6 inches and less freezing rain, still going to cause high impacts to folks who are driving out there. So that southern edge is going to have a tight cutoff somewhere. Most likely Effingham, maybe as far north as Mattoon Parish. It just depends on how far north that mild air aloft can get, and that mild air aloft is enough to take that snow and cut it back and do things like that. So this is that zone that we're watching here. Again, mainly a cold rain down here, probably Robinson and Oblong and even south of there for the Wednesday event, mainly a cold rain. You see here this pinkish area. This is the zone to watch. Somewhere in here, there will be a transition. And at times, you know, we can see, oh, it lifts a little north and it wobbles back south and, you know, kind of moves around throughout the day. And so we just have to watch that. But if you're in that pink zone there, then definitely be considering wintry mix, including sleet and freezing rain. Freezing rain, probably more likely on the south part, maybe some sleet to the north, but that doesn't mean we can't interchange that. So we're using a broad wintry mix in there. The further north you live, maybe the better chance you have to see that mainly snow, because that could help out things and get those snow totals up. So I hope that makes sense the way we're describing things with this particular system on what is going on. So when we look at our winter impacts here, I'll pull that graphic up. This I kind of think compiles the impacts all in one. Certainly, we've dealt with snow events where we get a couple inches at times out there, maybe 3, 4. And when we do that and there's no ice in the roads, we can handle it like a champ in Illinois. For Wednesday, though, the issue that we see here is that there could be some freezing rain and sleet that also mixes in on that. Sleet will knock down a snowfall forecast, but it also puts ice crystals on the road. And if you happen to get some melting snow on those roads, those ice crystals can cause things to refreeze. And so that is a concern for us here. So snow, medium impacts, maybe at times a little higher here, not too concerned about that. It's the ice that really could be the challenge for us. And narrowing that down is such a very specific window that we have where I think by tomorrow, when we get closer and closer, tomorrow morning, we might have a better idea. And then we'll look at the data tomorrow afternoon and evening and maybe be able to narrow that window down. It's really looking like it's going to be here, kind of focus on exactly where that is. But here's the good thing. The wind, sure, 20, 25 mile an hour gust, that could still cause a few problems when you've got some extra weight on there. This doesn't seem to me, though, to be a big ice storm that pulls down trees and power lines left, right, up, down, all over. And so that's some good news here. Can we have a few issues from the wind with power and trees? Sure, but I'm not really worried about that. So I don't think it's going to be something at this point where we've got, tens of thousands of people out of power for hours and hours, and then we got to wait for the storm to leave. And then worst impacts on those roads, once we get to about 2 o'clock, I think that's when a lot of the roads will be really starting to get kind of icky out there. For a little earlier towards Springfield, probably closer to noon, 1. And then I'm going to leave it till 12 a.m. We might wrap up with things between 7, 8, and 9 p.m., but then we give our road crews a couple hours to get out there. And so I think what that means for Thursday then is that Thursday actually might be just a normal winter day. There's some snow and ice in the roads. It's not getting any worse. It's slowly getting better, especially when we get some sunshine in Thursday during the day. That can help out and keep up with some things for us. So that's kind of what we're looking at here with this impacts forecast. So that's what we're expecting. I got a lot of you on. You're probably going to hear more from us as well. So first off, here's that southern system sliding on by. Watch the next system coming through. This is the Wednesday system where we experience the most impacts. But then we get to the weekend. And this weekend is looking like something else coming our way. What exactly? I don't know at this point, and I haven't had time to look at it a lot. It's still several days out. But I'm willing to bet we're probably going to deal with some rain, and then that rain likely changes back to some snow, which could be an issue for us moving forward. So just file it in the back of your brain. Hey, we got something else coming this weekend. We'll take care of it afterwards. Do want to talk about those low temperatures. And I had a really great question earlier tonight. What about moisture on the roads if temperatures are dropping? That is a very good point here. Notice Thursday here, 15. We could certainly see some of those roads struggle to get cleared, especially your less traveled roads, your side streets, not your main roads here. So that is something to consider where you'll see different roads have different levels of treatment and progress. Main roads might stand a better chance in that as we improve. We do get some sunshine, I think, Thursday. Anytime you get sunshine after a winter storm, even if it's in the 20s or teens like Thursday will be here, that can still help out with things. But then you got to watch Friday morning where things may freeze up again. It's winter. We deal with that. It's not end of the world, but certainly just to kind of keep your mind on things. And then even Saturday and Sunday, I think we're going to go back down as we go into Monday morning of next week with some more near to below zero temperatures. And we may see more of that even into next week as well. We're kind of keeping an eye on some colder air that is looming in the picture. I do want to, and I'm going to try and illustrate a little bit first about what this is. I put this on Facebook, and I hope this gives you a better idea time-wise. I mean, it's bright colors, right? But we're looking hour by hour at those impacts here through the day. Again, 8, 9 a.m., everything's fine. All is peachy in central Illinois here. But then notice we get to 11 a.m., we start to see some places get a little worse. Pontiac, Watseka, that probably also includes Bloomington in that. And then those impacts, once we get past lunch, start to decrease. You start to get more impacts here. And for some of us as well, we could see it kind of come and go a little bit. That may happen for some of our areas towards Mattoon, Charleston, Taylorville, Shelbyville, Litchfield, Carlinville, where we have some of that mix in there. And then at the bottom here, I got Toledo and Effingham. I'm going to put it full screen, but I think it maybe helps with planning, thinking about what it is. So on the left side, you've got the day or the town. At the top, you've got the hour by hour Wednesday. And this kind of is my thought process and how things may look. So again, Wednesday morning, lots of you are going to wake up and see nothing. And I know it. I just know it. I know I'm going to get a message about it. Somebody's going to say, hey, you were wrong again. Look at that. I know that's coming. And I bet a lot of you are going to see it too. Somebody's going to do that. But we in this Facebook Live are smart. We know on Twitter. We know on Twitch. We know on the app, wherever you're watching right now. We know that that is expected. Wednesday morning, fine. Midday, things start to get a little rough. And by the afternoon, that afternoon commute looks to be the greatest impacts for us here. And with that snow-ice combo, for some of us here, that could be an issue as we move on through. You'll see some improvement as we go into the evening and overnight. Once we get that out there, give our road crews some time to get some salt out, get some things plowed. And I think Thursday will be just kind of a standard winter day post-snowstorm. It's not a long, high-impact type of scenario that continues for a couple of days here. So I did want to spend a little time and kind of illustrate that. So hopefully this makes sense. I had a couple of folks say, hey, I really like this graphic. We try and be as transparent and connect as many places as we can. If you're looking on here, it's like, oh, I live in Elliott. I'm from Elliott and Ford County. Well, good news, I got Gibson City and Paxton close by, so this would be your bar. Maybe you're like Ann down in Findlay watching. Well, here's Shelbyville, here's Taylorville. That's pretty close to you. You're also maybe close to Mattoon and Charleston Paris. You can kind of evaluate in here a little bit and, pick between the lines and what's going on. We've got Danforth. Jennifer's up there. There's a Watseka for you. And, so you can kind of do that. So if you want to read that more, you can head over to my Facebook page and check that out. I think I want to do one last graphic. I thought I had one more, but I don't remember what it was. Oh, I'll go ahead and show you this power outage index, the risk of power outages. It doesn't stick out to me. There may be a narrow zone that gets maybe a slightly higher amount of freezing rain in there. Where that ends up, maybe we have to go from isolated to scattered. Whoop-de-doo, not a big problem. We've dealt with winter storms. We'll deal with this one, but we always like to let folks know, especially sometimes, again, you wake up, you're like, oh, it's nice out Wednesday morning. There's nothing going on. Woohoo. When you go into work, if you work in an office, here in the TV station, we have no windows. Of course, we go outside. We've got our cameras. But, my wife works in an office, and she doesn't have a window next to her desk. If she doesn't go out for lunch, and, maybe, there's a little bit falling between lunch and 5 p.m., be night and day difference for a lot of us here across the region. So that is something to consider from that. So with that, I'm going to throw this impacts forecast back up. I'm going to answer questions in a minute or two. So if you have a question, throw those in the chat. We'll cover that. I'll kind of reintegrate what we're looking at to reestablish what we're looking at here, kind of summarizing. This is more of a travel impact, less of a power impact here, which is some good news. On the south side, impacts will taper off pretty quickly, 10, 20 miles. Does that end up a little more north? That warm air comes more north, cuts back on the sleet, freezing rain, pushes it more north this way. That's a possibility, but down here you get the idea that impacts will decrease. That's because we go from a cold rain to some sleet and freezing rain, and then we hit that snow there. I tend to think that transition falls in this hatched area here, that outlined area where the ladder runs across, the tire track, I guess you could say. And that's probably where we have the greatest impacts. There will still be issues up here in I-55 and north and west, especially from snow. It's all snow from here up. But in this area, when you get a little snow and you get a little freezing rain and ice, somewhere in here probably having a rough time from that. So we'll keep an eye and see exactly where that ends up. That is what I have for you here. Michael is asking, can you show projected snow totals again? Yes, I can. And there are some caveats to that because of the mix of sleet and freezing rain. If you have a 6-inch snowfall forecast and you get sleet for a couple of hours, from that 6 inches, I can cut it down to 2. We can literally see that kind of drop. So there is some variability in here, but you get the idea that the more north and west we go, the more those totals are. We're going to go 3 to 5 for down here. There probably are going to be some 6 pluses that pop up, Livingston, McLean County, and especially off to the north and west. It just depends for a lot of us how far north that warm air gets. I've got 1 to 2 plus ice and turquoise, and then a quick ramp up to 2 to 4 here. If we get 4.5 in there, 5, that's pretty close here. If we end up with the 2.5, 3, we're kind of in there. So this area is where we kind of have to watch to see where that sleet and freezing rain combo has what happens. And so while the snow forecast is the most fun, it's it's fun looking, it's great. You see that, you got to consider the ice part and what that plays a role in as well here. And so that's going to affect those snow numbers. But at the end of the day, the impacts don't change here. So ice-wise, probably going to be some spots, a swath in here of that transition zone where you could get a couple of tenths, maybe up to a 1/4 inch of ice, and some sleet probably falls in that as well. So we'll keep an eye here. Still a little bit possible north and west, but then there's a quick gradual drop-off here as we go south and east here as well. So that's something to kind of consider. It seems like that sweet spot for that ice kind of runs right through the middle of our area. And for those of us in Champaign-Urbana who over the years have been sleet bombed, where we have a good snowfall forecast and then a bunch of sleet falls and we don't get what's happening, and that may very much be what happens with this particular event as well. We just got to watch things pretty closely with that. See, that's Michael's question. Michael and I went to school together a number of years back in GCMS. Andrea asking about winds. Yeah, I'll show you the wind here again. I'm not all that concerned about the wind. There'll be a little wind and it can cause the snow to blow and, whoop-de-doo. It's not something to me that stands out as a high impact thing with the wind. You can see here Tuesday, and then we get to Wednesday. For the most part, max wind gusts 20, 25. There may be a few spots that get a little higher than that, but, that's not something where when you have, this is gusts also, cut that in half, and that's your sustained wind. So it's kind of what you do with for that. So we might see 5 to 10, maybe at times 12 mile an hour and wind gusts of 18 to 25 out there. That's going to maybe take a weak branch and bring it down. If there's a power pole that's been damaged over the years, a little weaker, you kind of take out some of those things, but it's not going to cause major problems from the weight of that ice, I don't think. So that's what we're kind of expecting with that. Oh, Courtney asking, what's the projected school e-learning day forecast? To be totally honest, Wednesday morning, boy, I tell you, I feel bad for the superintendents time and time again. Wednesday morning, they're going to have to make a call. And I think a number of them may say, well, we're going to try and squeeze a half day in, get the students on buses at 11:40, and we can count that for attendance purposes. There'll be some that just say, yep, e-learning day. There'll be some that go to school and maybe they watched another channel and didn't realize what's going on, or, whatever. But they may not have a forecast and think, oh, we'll go to school. And then they look outside at lunch and like, wait a minute, whoa, we got the kids, get the kids out of here. So a lot of those things are possible here. I know a lot of the superintendents pay attention to our weather content. A lot of them message me occasionally and say, hey, what do you think? What's going on? They know to turn to us here across the regions, and they'll be making calls that, we could have that philosophical discussion. Is it the right call or wrong call? And some parents will say it's the wrong call every time. Some parents will say safety is important. It's the right call. You think I have it hard. Those superintendents and school administration, boy, they have it hard as well. So, but I do think that there'll be at least a number of schedule changes coming on Wednesday, whether they just say, nope, e-learning, or they're saying, yeah, let's try and fit a half day in. A number of those things are possible. You got a kid at home. I tell you what, if they are able to e-learn, say, hey, bring your laptop home, bring your stuff home Wednesday, just in case. And then I don't want to get ahead of ourselves on Thursday yet. Depending on how things are, once we get the snow out of here, 9, 10 p.m., and we got all night, we got 8 hours of work that crews can do in the overnight hours. There probably will be some issues on Thursday. Some schools, they just don't want to risk it. They'll delay start or whatever. I mean, expect some schedule changes Wednesday and Thursday. That's probably the safest way to do that. Sheila is asking about the roads from Windsor to Indy, Tuesday or Friday. Yeah, again, so tomorrow, I don't have any problems in the area. Friday, I don't have any problems in the area. Tomorrow is Southern Illinois, Southern Indiana. Friday is 2 days past the Wednesday event. But then Friday night into Saturday, as we see the rain and whatnot start to mix on it as well here. And same question, Thursday. A lot of times IDOT gets things taken care of really well. The interstates after an event. So there may still be some slick spots, but I tend to think those interstates, our road crews, they do as great of a job as they can. So that's something that's there. Lana asked about what was the travel impact time frame again. For the most part here, I think late morning to the west to midday here in central and east central Illinois. So 9, 10 to 12 p.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. from west to east is when things start to ramp up. And we think that the afternoon commute is the greatest impact, though, for our region. So that's the deal with that. Eli saying Muhammad never cancels school. There's some schools, they go, and there's a few superintendents out there. I'm sure this. Well, when I was a kid, we walked uphill in the snow both ways. So that's what happens. Richard asking about another system. Yeah, we kind of briefly talked about it. Where yes, that could be coming Saturday, Sunday. We'll leave it at that. There's a lot happening between now and then. There's a lot of time, but another system does look to come on the weekend. Probably my initial thoughts is we'll start with some rain Saturday, and at some point we may see a transition to snow here. Chris is asking about models making a pretty drastic shift south this close to storm time. Yeah, sometimes shifts happen here. And when we look at those raw model data, if you follow those, you can waffle around with those and see things happen. We tend to like to look for more trends that happen. You can say, I'm trying to think of an example here. If you flip a coin, 10 times, you should expect to see about 50%, right? Sometimes we could see, we're throwing a lot more heads here. Or, that trend is starting to look a little more south where you kind of lean one way or another, if that makes sense. That's my best attempt at an analogy for that. And so could that shift the snow total south? What I think would be more likely is maybe, I don't want to think about it as a shift, but it's all about the warm air aloft. And warm air aloft is the worst thing to forecast. I mean, it is, nobody likes doing it here. If that warm air aloft cannot make it in to start melting some of that snow aloft and giving us more ice and freezing rain, then yeah, those snow totals come on down and they come a little higher here. Do we see Effingham suddenly in the 2 to 4 and 3 to 6 inch range? That I don't think happens here. It's all about that warm air. So Effingham, you could get maybe a couple inches out of it at most if we get no freezing rain, but really not thinking it's a big deal for you guys. You guys had January. Let that be your event. But up here, suddenly if, let's just say in a perfect world, there is no freezing rain, no sleet, suddenly we go from 2 to 6 plus pretty quickly in this area. So we'll see how that shakes out. We're still about 48 hours out, but this is kind of a first forecast to look at that. So yeah, I expect a tight gradient, that freezing line, mixing rain, snow, ice, freezing rain in there, and then some cold rain, maybe a little bit of snow and ice down there as well. And that makes sense. Will the warmer temperatures expected tomorrow keep the impact lower? Not necessarily. And we look at that. Let me see here. Let me just pull up the temp one. There's lots of good questions. I always love answering questions. So thank you. Ask a question, and I see a number come in. Sometimes I can't get to them all, but we'll do the best we can. So tomorrow, and I haven't looked at this particular guidance yet, so we'll look at it for the first time together. Here we go into Tuesday. Okay, yeah, we got some spots mid to upper 30s here. ground's still cold. It wasn't like we were in the 60s the last 3 days. So can that keep the impacts lower? Still, the afternoon, especially up north, it looks to be lower here. And when snow falls in the ground, it'll cool things off pretty quickly. A cold rain will bring that surface temperature down pretty quickly as well here. So you can see then as we go into Tuesday night, here we are, and Wednesday morning before the snow has even started. A lot of us, all of us, in fact, they're according to Future Tracker, at least below 32. And then we just got to watch here. Now, we're talking about freezing rain and sleet, for instance, Champaign-Mattoon, somewhere in here, maybe a little further south. Notice the temperature during the day Wednesday hasn't gone above freezing. It's below freezing at the surface. That warm air is a couple thousand feet up. And all we have to do is get above 32 degrees, and then you start to melt the snow as it falls. If it falls back into cold air like this at the surface, and perhaps up a little ways, that water can refreeze. And so if it refreezes, it can get sleet. But if you melt that snowflake entirely, now you've just got cold water falling. It's not going to freeze back into a snowflake, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. It's warm air aloft that's being an issue for us here with that. And then you can see as well, there's Thursday. We're still in the 20s, and then we get to Friday. The numbers drop off, but you can see those temperatures really dropping down to some of those pink shades that are there for that. I'm running out of time here. I got about 2 more minutes of questions I can answer. Then we got the newscast at 9 I got to get ready for. So that's something to think. Could Sangamon County be in the winter storm watch? Yeah, I think there's going to be changes to that, but don't let the idea of an alert like a winter storm watch or winter weather advisory, it's a box and a criteria, and if we match it, we issue it type of thing. Impact-wise, we're going to see varying impacts. Not all winter storm warnings are the same. Not all winter weather advisories are the same. Not all storm systems are the same here. But we think that combination could lead to some hazardous travel, particularly Wednesday afternoon. Tony's asking about snow or ice for Paris. You're probably much more in the ice area. When you're on the south part here, that's where that better chance is. As we get north, then you get closer to the snow area. This little box area is where I think that best chance for the mix will be. And so we'll see what happens. Weston asking for chicken people, snow boots or rain boots for Wednesday. Well, it depends on where you are. Snow boots do the job. So it might be snow boots. Unless you're down I-70 south, then maybe you're thinking rain boots. And that looks like kind of wraps up the questions there. So with that, thanks for watching. I'm going to log off here. Been a number of you on, several hundred of you. Appreciate that. You want to get more details? I've got a nice Weather Now article up on the website. You can go to our weather app, our news app, WCIA.com. You can check that article. It explains things in depth as well. We put some time and effort into that. And then we're going to have updates as well. Tonight, Adam's back in the morning. Kevin will be back tomorrow night. They actually give me a day off finally tomorrow. But I'll still be here getting the storm tracker ready, because then come Wednesday, I will 90% chance be in the storm tracker, and Kevin will be here and Adam will be here in the morning, and we will keep you updated. Wednesday afternoon and evening, the greatest impacts expected from that. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your Monday.